I'm Peter Hindle, and I'm on the management committee of Agenda, who's organised the event this evening. First of all, I wanted to acknowledge the Ngunnawal people as custodians of the land on which we meet today. And secondly, I want to welcome you all officially. So, ladies, gentlemen, and most importantly, all the rest of us. It's fantastic to stand here and see such a large group of people with what I know is a very high representation of sex and gender diverse people who have made a choice to come out and be part of this celebration this evening. And I want to welcome each and every one of you who've made that effort to be part of this. But it's equally fantastic to stand here and see so many people who aren't intersex and who aren't transgender, who are also choosing to be here tonight. I was scanning the room nervously for the last half hour, and I'm seeing family and friends and parents and partners and children and supporters and advocates and allies. And I want to welcome all of you not as some kind of external observers, but as valuable and valued members of our community. We've got two speakers this evening, and it's my job to introduce Gab Hitch, who is also a member of the Agenda Management Committee, who has put a great deal of time and energy into organising tonight, and who is, and I think always has been, a very passionate and vocal ally. Thank you, Gab.
Thank you, Peter. I pay him very well to speak so highly. Worth every penny, I would say. It is an honour to be here tonight and to be given an opportunity to speak on what I consider to be among the most important days in the year. And I don't take that honour lightly at all. And so I'd like to start by thanking Agenda for giving me the opportunity, and to everyone here tonight for being willing to hear a few brief thoughts of mine. Although anyone here who knows me knows that promise of brevity does not hold much water. Okay. It can be hard for communities and movements and groups to find that specific shtick, that raison d'etre that says that's what we're fighting against, that you can point to and say that's what we have to rally around. But sadly, infuriatingly, for the trans community, we have never had to search for that reason. It has been forced on us again and again and again, against our will and against any notion of justice. 12 years on, the Trans Day of Remembrance has yet to become defunct. It began in 1999 as an international annual day to commemorate and honour the members of our community who have been murdered as a result of transphobia. It is a day when we can be together and reflect on the tragedy of these deaths and the cruel spaces left in the world where these vibrant, meaningful and important lives once were and should continue to be. This day, and any other that is spent engaging in this kind of reflection, can be so challenging to get through. It can be hard, seemingly impossible sometimes, to continue standing upright as wave after wave of grief and visceral loss hits us. It can feel like we have just no time to catch our breath before we're submerged again and sent tumbling, unable to replant our feet or regain our bearings. Sometimes, when our heads rise back above water, we feel that we are looking around all alone, far out to sea, with hope too far and too horizon-like to swim towards on our own. Sometimes it feels like we'll buckle under the exhaustion of wading through such horror and loss, and we could drown in it, all alone out to sea. But this metaphor, overworked though I understand it is at this point, is not what I know to be true of the incredible trans community. The transphobia, the violence, the bigotry and the hate, those things are not the ocean. Those things are the weeds that grow thick and tangled from the dark seabed. The ocean, the mighty, powerful, immense ocean, that's us. That's us here in this room. That's the trans community. and it seeks not to drown us, but to lift us up and to take away earthly weight and burden. Let us float on our backs and catch our breaths for a little while and look up into the boundless sky of opportunities and hope that exist for a life lived authentically. And that, I think, is what is so vital about the Trans Day of Remembrance. When you feel that the world is too heavy to continue carrying it on your shoulders, you can stop and look around at the miracle of our community and take strength from one another, as we have throughout our entire history. And as you look around, remember that here is the immensity that I spoke about. Here is the power that will propel us forward in our joint fight against oppression and harm. And it will lead us always back to each other and to the love and respect that we share. At this point, I'd like to stop and speak directly to the trans people here tonight. Now, I know that the sentiments that I'm about to share would be felt by all allies, but right now I'd just like to offer them as just one humble servant of the community, or just as a local gal who's never found community resilience, respect and uncompromising acceptance like that which I have among all of you. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving me a fuller understanding of what it is to live with dignity. Thank you for showing me that when one is brave enough to sit and examine themselves as human beings separate from the assumptions and the judgments and the norms that seek only to limit what we are capable of, not only do we emerge more powerful, but we are more able to love and unconditionally accept that which is outside of ourselves. You've taught me that there is no end, there is no defeat, there is only exponential growth and boundless potential. And when it feels like all you can find in the outside world is brute force, we can stop and look to each other and find immeasurable strength. There is nothing that a group with such integrity cannot achieve. And so I thank you for teaching me these things, and I thank you for allowing the world to continue to learn from you. The world owes so much more than these insufficient praises to the brave individuals who have lost their lives for living these ideals. And that's why we're here tonight. In the spirit of living testaments, we have dedicated a small plant to each community member who was murdered in 2010. And these will form a memorial that, in its longevity, will speak to our ongoing commitment to honour their memories and to care for one another. And in its growth, will speak to the vibrancy of the lives that have been taken. Shane Rattenbury of the ACT Greens is going to be taking one of these plants as a personal tribute to our memorial, and we urge anyone here tonight to come and take one and do the same. So, with no further delay / waffling, let's bring up Mr. Rattenbury from the Greens.
Well, hello everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me to join you today in marking this year's Trans Day of Remembrance. I was very struck when I was talking to Peter about it the other day, about the changing nature of the event, going from the emphasis towards, I guess, a sense of mourning towards perhaps a more positive sense of celebration and looking towards the future. I think the focus on valuing the wonderful people that are still with us is a source of inspiration. It is essential to remember those who have suffered in the past, acknowledging the strength and resilience that they demonstrated every day living with discrimination and fighting against that discrimination. And whilst we must be mindful of the struggles that continue today, it is the strength of people who have gone before and the strength of those people who are with us here today that does inspire us to keep fighting for a better future. In terms of the future, let me talk briefly about a couple of practical things that are going on in the world that I move in, the world of politics. The first one is in February this year, the Human Rights Commissioner here in the ACT provided our Attorney General with a human rights advice on the sex change provisions of the Birth, Deaths and Marriages Registration Act. We haven't heard much about it since, but as a matter of happy timing, today was the annual reports hearings for the Attorney General's Department, which gave me a chance to ask him where it was up to. And I asked the Attorney, and he indicated to me that he has now formally written to the head of the Law Reform Advisory Committee here in the ACT, with a draft terms of reference for an investigation and report on the human rights and discrimination issues faced by transgender and intersex people. The request also asks, to be specifically asked about this, that the committee undertake public consultations, which they do not normally do, but because of the recognised complexity and sensitivity around some of the issues arising, the attorney has specifically requested that. So there's still some distance to go, but I want to let you know that there's not a definite start date yet, but there appears to be some progress on that, which I think is a very positive thing, and a testament to the efforts of Gender Agenda, who have been lobbying the Assembly on these very issues. The other positive thing that I think's happened this week was the passage of the motion in the Federal Parliament, sponsored by my colleague Adam Bant, on marriage equality. And again, it's not the final step, but I think it's positive that it did pass through. It required the support of the so-called Conservative independents, and I think that's a good sign as well. It doesn't guarantee marriage equality, but I think the most interesting part of it is that it asks members to go out and talk to their constituents about their views. And I think what some of these slightly closeted members of Parliament will find when they go out there is that most Australians are a pretty accepting bunch of people who value strong and loving relationships more than they value some of the stereotypes that a minority would seek to force upon the definition of marriage. So still, I think there's a long way to go in this fight, but I'm encouraged by the fact that the conversation has been lifted to a new level, as I'm sure you've all seen in the press this week. And unfortunately, it also flushes out some prejudices. You'll have seen, or might not yet have seen, the comments of the head of the SDA, the Shoppies Union, essentially, today, condemning Julia Gillard for even allowing the debate. But that's a prejudice that we just have to keep fighting against, and one day I think we'll prevail. So let me conclude simply by saying that none of these steps alone will bring an end to prejudice or discrimination, but I hope that each of them does bring us a step closer to living in a country and living in a world where we do see the end of discrimination and prejudice, and I hope to see that date much sooner rather than later. So thank you again for inviting me to join you in marking this important occasion.
Just want to let you know that we have done things a little bit differently this year, so if you have any feedback, you can come up and see myself or Peter or any other AGA representative. We also have a table with some information and membership forms, and so you're welcome to sort of potter over there. And I don't quite know how to put this delicately, but there is a donations box, and we do want your money. So I'm not going to put together, you know what I'm saying. Okay, enjoy, and thank you very much for coming.